My name is Jay Hatch, co-founder of a company called Creator Space Events, as well as a co-founder of a music library, a one-stop music library for sync called Made by Us. I've been doing music now. I've been involved in music for over 30 years. I know I look super young, thankfully, but I've been doing this thing for a minute now. I've been an advocate for new creatives for a long time. Yeah, a company called iStandard. We put a lot of your favorite producers on the platform. People like Cardiac, Black Metaphor, Orange Tech, Cardo, and whatnot. And these guys all kind of came up through my system. And with the sync stuff, it's more of a recent experience for us. We started our company about 2 years ago. We started pitching to film and TV companies about a year ago. And since then, we've had over about 190 film and TV placements overall. This means Fox, Peacock, Hulu, NBC, ESPN, WC, Apple TV. So we've been going at it. We have a pretty strong team of 6 people. The process of sync in general is pretty thorough. In order to really operate properly, it's got to be seamless. And we can kind of talk about the different things in regards to sync as we go. But for the most part, right now my main objective is to grow my sync brand, and also I do song camps in about 10 different cities where I bring out songwriters and producers to create music for the sync opportunities, as well as to essentially find some records for artists too.
If you just could run into and then just kind of dive into what like the whole sync process is about, like you alluded to, kind of just to give the class an understanding of what it felt like, the process and how everything is and the difficulties that might occur, kind of the nuances with like briefs and such.
Well, just like any other business, sync is really about relationships. Anytime you can build with a music supervisor or assistant creatives, whether it be LinkedIn or if you got a cold email, you really have to know how to approach these individuals directly, because they're all looking for something different, but at the end of the day, they're all looking for great music. So if you were to potentially want to learn more about sync or try to find direct people to deal with, the place to really live is LinkedIn. LinkedIn has all kinds of music supervisors, assistant creatives. Sometimes they have producers that I've worked with, with sync you collaborate with, but it's really a place where you can communicate without being so spammy, whether on Instagram or Twitter, wherever the case may be. So I think that's important to understand. As you're trying to go at it alone, that's probably your first best bet. And also just educating yourself on the process and the language of sync, knowing what, just knowing the different types of sync deals, knowing what's fair, what's not, knowing how to approach people in a certain way where it doesn't seem like you're being too really aggressive, at the same time you're being, persistent, communicative, and short and sweet. These days people don't want a lot of information. They want the right information. So talking to people on LinkedIn, you can easily sell a reel of your music. If you have any stuff that's already been placed on film and TV, you can sell a reel there. You share your content, but it's really all about that. It's not about all the extra stuff where, don't take selfies, dog videos, crap like that. You know what I'm saying? So for the most part, it's really about sync. Now, there's also sync brands like mine, which is more of a boutique company, where if you have a relationship with somebody on our team or with myself and my team, getting into a one-stop sync library will be beneficial to you, because there is a little bit of a split in regards to the publishing and the upfront fees. However, you get to share our relationships, our platform, our repertoire, our just whole ecosystem in general. So, for instance, we've signed over 105 creators over the last 2 years to our company. And most of those creators have either done one of my events, collaborated with me or one of my clients, been a referral from additional clients, whatever the case may be. It's like one of those places where, like, hey, if your teacher said, hey, Hatch, this guy's really cool, you should really listen to his music, I'm going to check it out because I know he's not going to steer me in the wrong direction. But a lot of times you get to a place where everybody wants to get involved, and then you get involved and they don't really have the drive to really put the music into play. Whereas maybe somebody who's a little more hungry, who has a bigger catalog, might be able to do so. So the one thing I want you guys to know is the word one stop, just that one phrase, one stop. One stop really means like I'm able to clear everything on my library in one stop. So I'll give you an example. A few months ago, Hulu was doing a project on the church that Justin Bieber kind of gave reborn again in. I think it's called Hillside. And then after that, they had some issues with the school about like maybe some, you know, pedophilia and some different things like that. So they wanted to do like a documentary on it. But the song they wanted to use was Jesus Walks by Kanye West. The problem there is there's like 15 people on the record. They're all signed different, publishing companies. Not everybody going to agree on the price because the price is only about $25,000 and Kanye is not going to take anything less than by 50 for himself. So, they wanted to find somebody else to kind of remake the song. Not in a way where it's the same exact song, but it's got like an edgier religious feel to it, hard beat, and they give you something that was called a brief. So a brief is basically just an explanation of what's the examples and the price will it pay for your finished product if they do decide to use it. So it's like have like, a YouTube link in there saying, here's Jesus Walks, here's Holy by Justin Bieber, here's, whatever songs. We're looking for records that kind of emulate these, that have more of a more edgier feel to them. They'll be very specific. They'll say, we're not looking for exact records. We're looking for records that have a brighter feel or, more up-tempo vibe, or, it might also fall into this game. Like they're very, very specific. And that's the great thing about Sync, because it's not if you're playing music for like a manager or A&R or an artist where they're like, oh, just send me some hot shit. Well, they're okay. What does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like with Sync, it's very, very specific, and it's also very to the point. And you also know when you're getting paid. Well, they do want it. You guys do decide to use it, you know exactly how much you're getting paid for it, and you also get paid in a very short period of time. So it's a little more lucrative than dealing with artists directly. Sync can be making money while you sleep. You know what I mean? Like we get calls every day for briefs. Or sometimes you just go within our catalog and we'll reach out to our roster and they'll custom make something. We just did the opening. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with ESPN, this show called RC&D, DC and RC, MMA talk kind of show. We just did the whole openings of that song. So, of that show rather. When that song first comes out, it's one of our creators who produced and wrote the record and performed it. Not only is he getting paid on the producer side, he's getting paid on the writer side, they're getting performance royalties as well. So he's able to, walk away with a nice check, have a great credit on his resume, and also retain royalties for the record every time it plays.
Okay. So in terms of like a brief, is there any way that you could give them an example? I know sharing them is kind of a faux pas, but is there any way that you can give like an example of maybe what one says or some of the language that is in there that is pretty straightforward and direct, so they kind of know?
Yeah, let me pull something up really quick. All right, so, and this is really crazy. So we got this Sync opportunity from a comedy show, which is Vietnamese, Hindi, vintage, and contemporary, right? So they give you about 5 or 6 different links, right? So there's a Hindu language, there's a Vietnamese language, there's an authentic 90s, 20s, 2000 hip hop, there's an LGBTQ, contemporary vibe, there's other like fun, carefree, heartfelt family and romantic vibes. So there's literally 7 or 8 opportunities within one brief here, right? So one of the things that we do is we'll say, hey, team, we have about 7 days to get these records together. Who wants to take a crack at it? Now, this is a tough one because not everybody understands Hindu or Vietnamese, so you have to kind of find if you have everybody on the team and do so, or if you maybe potentially have anything in your catalog. So they'll reach out to us and say, hey, we have a client that's looking for various genres of music for a comedy show. You have something in your category that's fit, please upload these in the link below. Deadline is Monday, 10/30/23, end of day. End of day usually means about 6 o'clock. And again, it'll send in more details in regards to what the sort of independent vintage, 90s to 2000s, about pop, rock, R&B, indie, dance, hip. And then again, you go down the line, there's all different types of cues up for these different apps for Hindu, Vietnamese, et cetera, and then they'll give you a price. So the budget for this one happens to be about $1,500 Canadian, which is about only 1,100 USD. It also is a MFE commission, which is deducted. It's kind of like a Sync. I don't want to say it's a service fee, but it's something along the lines about being a service fee. But again, you submit your music and you never know what could possibly happen, especially if you have a good catalog, if you collaborate a lot, or if you're in part of a one-stop library. Like, a lot of stuff we get the day of, so it's very hard to share with the team. Because by the time we send it to you, you get it done, you send it back, you got to fill out paperwork, you got to send us the stems. It takes a long time, but sometimes we'll have stuff in our playlist. We can just kind of go to find it out. So a brief is basically like a sample sheet of what they're looking for, what the examples are, and also what the potential price could be with a deadline. And usually with an upload link, there's something called Disco. Not sure if everybody's aware of this. Disco is really like a platform that we use to sync, where you organize all your music, and you also get a chance to compartmentalize various albums that you may have, whether, let's say, you work on hip hop, 90s vibes, you can put it all in one album. You'd be doing a pop album, okay, you put all your pop stuff in one place. That way, when you share this link with music supervisors, they can find your music a whole lot easier, as opposed to just kind of going down this one long library list of links. So that's what we do. We have about 70 albums in our library right now, which is over about 1,200 records that we own, that we can shop using the one stop. So, sync, again, is very, very specific, very process driven, and very seamless if you're doing it right.
Thank you for explaining that. So one of the terms that we kind of get hung up on as a class that, I mean, is confusing to anybody breaking into this type of business, but it's more like what the difference between like a buyout and a work for hire like deal is. And a lot of what I explained to them is I gave them the example of, Jake won with John Cena, where it was just a flat buyout with a flat fee. It wasn't necessarily work for hire, but they paid him the fee, and now he doesn't really receive any compensation going forward. Whereas work for hire, there's a whole different aspect of it. And it's just something that we've kind of been hung up on general. So if there's any way that you can like explain really the nuances between the two.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's not, Sing is a good opportunity to build your credits up, right? So if you have music on your laptop and it's kind of sitting there and you're like, I don't really know what to do with it, and you finally get it to a sync agent and they're like, hey, we want to use it, we want to buy it out. Really, you got to weigh out the pros and cons of it, right? So the pros are you're going to get a nice flat fee. You have to get a great credit, being able to talk about it, promote it, and have something to, kind of hang your hat on. Now, when it comes to, just a regular sync placement, there are some royalties involved, but that also is really revolving around A, how many times is it going to be, what network is it on, what channels are they also, projecting to, or how long is the actual piece of music in that placement? Because all these things really regard to the cost of what you're going to get paid out. So again, if it's something like this, one little brief that I read out to, let's say you play something on the 90s hip hop side of it, and they were like, hey, we want to use this, it's going to be $1,500. Okay, cool. And then you're also going to get some royalties. Okay, cool. But this one thing is playing in Vietnam, or it's playing in, Japan, or it's playing outside of the US. Then now it becomes a little bit harder to find these things when it comes to, recognizing their royalties. So they do different things much differently in Southeast Asia than they do here in the States. Luckily, we have sub-publishers that work in those countries, which help us retain those royalties. But I can tell you it's a little difficult sometimes, especially when you're dealing with a third-party publisher or notification reach. But buyout just allows you to, again, you have to make the decision: is it worth it enough for you to just sell this out? So, for instance, the RCDC we did was a buyout, but there was also some royalties regarding ESPN on the playback. So it was a unique deal for us. We have had other buyouts where it's just, for instance, we sold 15 records to ESPN last year for like a sports show based around the Memphis athletes, because I guess there's some sort of like real big like Memphis resurgence of athletes coming out in the world. So we just basically went in, custom made like 50 tracks. We narrowed it down to like 30. They picked 10. They bought them. Everybody got paid a certain amount of money, and then they also, it was a buyout. So we had to take it out of our category. Out of our disco catalog. We have a record right now that we just did for Ancestry that's actually bought out, which is also going to be pulled out of our catalog as well. And again, it really just determines on it's up to you guys if you want to do that. And I would say at this starting age of your career, just the fact that you have a credit on a big, show, or you get a couple $1,000s for what you're doing, it's really hard to like measure up like what's worth more at the time. Because this show can drop, it could get sidetracked, it could maybe not air as many times as you thought it might air, and that buyout price might be bigger. And at the end of the day, it's just throwing credit. So it really just comes down to you and the turn agreement and what you feel best benefits your career as a trader. You know, I've known people that don't do buyouts at all because they just have a certain way they like to do, business. I have people that are doing buyouts all the time because they get that money and they're happy with it, get that creative, credit. That's something they can build and talk about. It's just like any other credit, right? If I work with Beat Mill and I go to another A&R or another manager, and I'm like, yeah, I need to for Beat Mill. They're like, oh, wow, okay, dope. You work with some big artists, right? So you kind of know what the process is. It's the same thing when it comes to sync. You get sync placements. These guys are like, okay, this guy knows the process is. Let me give him some business. It's a lot different from if I'm just working with that do sync, because again, there is some very specific, processes, especially when you work with a boutique company like myself.
Yeah, my name's Jack. So my question is, what are some of your favorite tools and just production, I guess tools that you use while producing songs?
Well, actually, I don't produce myself personally. I'm actually more of an executive producer. So I work with a lot of creatives and I bring them in the room when we create music. I used to be a rapper long time ago. I was signed to an artist named Slick Rick. His DJ used to be our manager. So I kind of went through my creative space, my creative ways, and even stepped away from music for about 8 years and came back and felt like I had to be more creative business side of it. So I felt like I learned so much. I used to manage 18 stores for Harold Postal, the clothing store. So I took all those skill sets and I used them, as kind of managing creatives. I've managed multi-platinum producers, multi-platinum writers. I worked with Ariana Grande, but I've never actually made music myself, which is something I always kind of wanted to do. But, at the end of the day, it takes a lot to put that focus on just creating. So I found it easier for me if I get great people in the room, I can kind of, direct them on how to be better. That's why I do these song camps, because the song camps really allow me to get back in the studio, be vocal about it. I write a little bit here and there, but I don't actually make beats. So essentially, I'm more of a writer than I am a producer, but I consider myself an executive producer.
What's if a musician comes to you or wanted to buy your song, what's a good starting price or something that you should always try to negotiate?
Yeah, good question. Are you talking more about a beat for an artist type thing, or? Yeah, again, there's so many ways you can go with it. Obviously, if you've got some records that you've placed already with other artists, I think your price could probably go up a little bit. There's also all kinds of websites out there like BeatStars, Airbit, Beat Club that you can use as a platform for your beats to sell as well. But I'd say if you were going to just start up selling a beat to an artist and you felt like, they were willing to, invest in themselves, I'd say probably around $200 would be a bit just the biggest price to start off with. And again, as you work closely with the artist and you start to build a relationship, maybe you guys start to release stuff on your own. But at first, it's not always about the money. It's one thing I like to always tell people. It's sometimes we gotta get our feet wet a little bit, get some experiences in, put some music out there, see how people feel about it. And then eventually, once you get to a point where you're actually gaining value from your music, if it's starting to generate royalties or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that you have a solid relation with the artist so all the business is done right. And one thing that I would look into, everybody, if you're working with artists in general, is something called a split sheet. Split sheet is basically just a sheet that breaks down the composition of what you brought to the table percentage-wise. So let's say, for instance, you work with a rapper, right? And you make the beat, you get 50% of the beat, right? If he wrote the record, you get 50% of the record, if he wrote the hook and the verses. So when you guys go to do the split sheet, you're gonna write down your PRO, which could be, BMI, CSAC, if you're part of one of those. And then you would write down your information on it, like your IPI number. This is basically just proof saying, hey, we did this record, we're gonna register the record saying that we did it, you get 50, I get 50. If this record makes it out to the universe and you start making some money, the PROs will pay us out, our writer share, our publishing share as well. So for the most part, it's just like one of those things to be safe, right? If you're doing a lot of records with people and you're losing track, and there's a split sheet is always something to help pull it all in and bring it back to perspective. Say, okay, let's just do the business right. That way nothing else can fail as we go along with this process.
Who's your favorite artist you work with?
Favorite artist I personally work with? Favorite artist I personally work with was probably Royce the 5'9". I've also been in the studio with Ariana Grande, 50 Cent, but I'm about I really like rappers that really know how to really spit lyrics. You know what I mean? So that was kind of a thing for me because I used to manage one of his main producers, a guy named Porter. Don Porter is actually Eminem's hype man. He was also part of a rap group called D12 a couple years back. So Don, as I was managing him, brought me into the studio with Royce and lead this energy and just being somebody who was so lyrical. Just, that's what the 90s hip hop vibes. I'm all about like the Benny the Butchers and the Millies and these guys. So for me, it's all about lyrics and obviously beats that go along with them. So Royce was cool. Ariana Grande sat on my lap. That was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. She's funny. But I've been in a room with Exhibit, Busta Rhymes. I mean, like I said, 50, Kendrick. And every instance is different based on your experience because I come in the room as like the manager / like supervisor kind of person. Like I try to make sure everybody's good. I make sure I'm a servant to everybody. Everybody's got water. They got what they need in the room. So for me, like my experiences are more based on like just my observations and my conversations with people because I'm really all about making sure everybody has their best experience when they come in and see with any of my clients for the most part.
All right, my name's Brady. And I was just going to ask you, like, what's your favorite experience you've had in the music industry?
My favorite experience, aside from maybe getting my writer her first publishing deal, I found a writer by the name of Cadence out of New York. She was homeless. She was recording out of her car. And we ended up getting her in the studio with Hit Boy and Ariana Grande. That led to her co-writing Thank You Next and Seven Rings, which are two of Ariana's big hits. Just seeing the gratification on her face of reaching that goal and me also knowing that I can help somebody get to that goal. I think that's probably one of my best. But I gotta say my best ever is probably meeting Dr. Dre. Like actually having a real conversation with him, not even about music. Because I used to manage one of his producers, Focus, for about 3 or 4 years. Focus, he did like 7 records on Compton. He's working over to M, to Snoop, to J-Lo, to Beyonce. So I managed him for about 4 years. And he brought me to the studio. I go to the back. He's like, I'm going to go to the bathroom, grab something out of the kitchen, whatever you want, grab a drink, whatever. I go back there. It's dark. And all of a sudden, I turn around and I see this hulking force behind me. That's freaking Dr. Dre, like this. And he was just so nice. I guess people just kind of give him this reputation that he's like such a tough guy. I mean, I've seen him be tough too, but just having a real conversation about life and him asking, what I'm excited about and why I like working with Focus and why, it was really refreshing from what happens a lot of times in the music industry. A lot of times it's very cutthroat, it's very egotistical, it's very like, me. So you have to really know how to bob and weave and be subjective to all the different routes that, a conversation or a situation can take you. And the better educated you are, the better off you'll be because you'll know how to handle them. But I think experience also helps with that too, because the more experiences you have, the more you kind of know how to deal with certain people and how they operate. And when I used to work at, for a clothing company and I managed 18 stores, I had to manage like 60 different managers, like 150 different employees. So you had to kind of deal with like different, just different people's, personal egos or personalities. So, I always feel like when you get the experience to like talk to people and get to know people and network, that's really an important trait for you to have is to just kind of be able to understand what everybody's looking for, what they want, and why they're here, what the reason for that is. You know what I mean? So that's a really good question.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Sorry.
You work with Mr. Bailey?
Yes, actually I do. He's one of the creators side of the thing. So he's always put music out there. I've known him for years though. He used to compete a lot of our producer events back in the day. So he won one. He's placed many times and his music's crazy.
Can you play some Mr. Bailey?
No. Eventually, I said.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Can't afford that, Jack.
Yeah. There's a price, 1,500. We talked about price.
Let me ask you guys a question. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges we faced as a creative, somebody who wants to make some music? What do you think are some of your biggest challenges? Kind of young, but what are some of the things you look at and just feel like hard to do or you don't know how to do it or whatever the case may be? And those challenges, nobody out there having a hard time, but it's easy peasy. I know what you're doing.
I feel like getting started.
That's it. Yeah, it just depends on what you're trying to do. Like I think a lot of people want to work with artists. A lot of people want to work with TV. A lot of people want to just really get a studio with people. You know what I mean? And I think getting started is really just educational side of it, just learning about some of the fundamentals, because if you don't know what a PRO is, if you don't know what a split sheet is, we don't know what, just the different terminology of music language, it's very difficult to kind of move. But as a creative, you can make music every day. You know what I'm saying? You can get busy almost every day. You can work with yourself, you can work with people, you can do remixes, you can download acapellas and make music. I think it really depends on what it is you really want to do. But I know for me, when I first started off, being a rapper and all that, like I didn't know much. I didn't really know. I was just surrounded by people who liked my music, so I just kind of went with that. And again, about 3 years in, I go to the studio. There's like a little note on the board saying "close till further notice," and I couldn't get in contact with my manager for almost 10 years. This is going back to like the payphone days, pre-cell phone, pre-beeper days, pre-digital days. So, I kind of came to a halt, and I started to realize that I let somebody else control my life. I let somebody else control my future because I didn't know the industry. I didn't know the educational side of it. Because I easily could have took that music to go went to work with some other people. I was so burnt out that I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a little break. So I went to work style, got promoted 17 times in 8 years. I made a 6-figure salary, had a nice car. But I woke up one day and I realized I didn't love it. I liked it, but I didn't love it. So music kind of kept calling me back, and I started off doing showcases for artists and for producers, and that kind of got my name known in the city. Then we started moving around the country, and I started building these big relationships with major producers, A&Rs, executives, managers, artists themselves. And like now, one of the things I can really pride myself on, and I think it's really important for everybody to know, is how imperative it is to really build solid relationships with community, not just when you need something. Like, I always try to make sure every week I do like a 10-person follow-up, and I just say, hey, what's going on? How you doing? I can help you out with. I try to be a little bit of a servant as much as I can. Obviously, I can't help everybody out, but if there's something that I know can be mutually beneficial, I try to really implement that into my thought process. Because, we all need help at some point. Sometimes helping somebody to help you in the long run. So I would say getting started, I was just gaining knowledge, find out what you really want to do, start building relationships with people around you, because there's going to be somebody in that classroom that's going to produce a flying records. Yeah. There's going to be somebody in that classroom that places a big record on a big movie someday, and sometimes we try to like network on a higher level. Well, I want to know who this guy is. This guy's working songs, so that's great. But if you guys get to know each other, and ladies and guys in the room that are creative, start making some great music together, and eventually, as you learn more from Mr. Bailey, from doing some research on your own and just from experiences, you'll start to see that road come a little bit clearer. Because right now it's probably like there's so much to do. How do I get started? Right? I mean, it's pretty much it.
Any other questions?
Would you say like artists nowadays or back when you first started, like were knowledgeable about like copyright and stuff like that, like split sheets, like you said?
I wouldn't say they were more knowledgeable about it, but I felt like they were probably used a little bit more because music moving at such a faster pace these days. Like I don't know if you guys notice it whenever you look at like a credit like on a pop record or a big hip hop record, and there's always like 15 people on that, right? All these different producers. Look at Travis Scott's there's some other record, Sicko Mode. It's got like 5 producers, 7 writers. It's like you got to remember all that. Who did what? Like how much percentage of their contribution did they bring to the table? Like, write it down. Once the money gets started to talk about, people start to forget. So I wouldn't say they were more knowledgeable. I think they were probably just more useful of it. But I feel like nowadays you could be more knowledgeable because you got this whole big ass internet in front of you where you can really learn anything. You know what I mean? Like you can really, YouTube University can teach you how to record yourself, how to mix. You can learn so much about business on various platforms as well. So I would say that, a lot of people always criticize social media, but I feel like if you're using it in dual form where you're also trying to learn from it, I think you can be really powerful in the game because if you're savvy with that kind of stuff, like knowing how to produce content and building that around your music and your videos, like all that stuff comes into play when it comes to today's music society. So I would just say, there's a couple of books out there. Actually, I have a book out there as well. But there's a couple of books out there like
how to make it. It's like how to make it in the music business.
Yeah.
There's the Donald Passman book.
Yeah.
In terms of like learning everything about the music industry. Ari Erstead has a good one out, and he has a podcast where he breaks down literally everything in the book. If you don't want to buy it, the book itself is like 4,000 pages long. So like really,
yeah.
It's good for
Feel good. It's good for your read.
yeah. It's good to have. It's good to look something up, but you know, we're not.
It's basically just it's like just a foundational piece of reference for you to use. But we find a lot of stuff online for the most part now. But I think the more knowledge you can be, obviously, the better off you are. Because again, you walk into situations and nobody can take advantage of you. So knowing about PROs, about splits, about copyrights, knowing about how to register your music with your PRO, knowing what a Q sheet is, knowing what everything from metadata to how to break down the stems, what comes to stink, like all this stuff really comes into play. And the more involved you get with it, the more you'll kind of realize how to move along with it. But for the most part, it's a process.
And when we start filming next week, a lot of what we're going to look at are those things. It's like if we're looking at a cue sheet, when certain things are supposed to be played at once, how long for the duration and things like that. Once we actually start filming, we are going to look at that probably starting next piece.
So when you drop an album, like
Yeah.
anybody, like where does the money come from? Because it's not weird because all like the streaming services are free, most of them. So like,
Yeah, Frank, that's an amazing question. Actually, it's not stupid at all. When you drop an album, there's multiple ways you can get paid from your PRO. They collect all your money. So a PRO is called a performance rights organization. So you have opportunities to get all kinds of royalties based on where your music is played and placed. The biggest challenge is that streaming platforms, although they might be free, the companies are still making billions of dollars off of your music. So if you don't know already, like a stream is like basically 0.003 cents or something along those lines based on what platform you're on. So if you have a million streams, you're basically making like $30,000 to $50,000 when the record label is probably making a whole lot more than that. So there's ways you can make money through that. There's performance royalties, there's royalties, there's different ways. And what happens is all these different places, they set up cue sheets that they send to the PRO. That's what the PRO knows when to pay you. You get paid out on different scales based on what PRO you sign. So if you sign an ASCAP, you get paid, I think every quarter. I think you sign a BMI, I think you paid a little more.
As ASCAP's monthly, BMI is quarter.
Okay, that's what it was. I never changed that long ago. So yeah, so just depending on what your PRO is, how you pay that, get paid out. But you can make money through many different ways. Obviously, sync is another way, to make money. With albums in general, between streaming, mechanical performance, they play on the radio. There's actually licenses where stores, if you go into the mall and you hear music, these stores have to pay a fee to your PRO. And that fee gets broken down and paid out to you in minuscule amounts based on how much music you have with the PRO and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways, man. But streaming is probably in today's society one of the most looked at. But at the end of the day, I think they're still trying to figure out streaming in general because people just are not getting paid fairly. There's something called the Money Modernization Act, which is trying to bump up the pay for writers and producers about 33% on streaming. So that'll be a big deal. But the problem is companies like Spotify and Tidal are holding that bill back. Because obviously they don't want to lose billions of dollars every year. So yeah, it's a funny industry, man. The music industry is a thing. You just have to know the details, know how to kind of, dodge the BS the best you possibly can. Like I said, the more you know, the better off you are.
Yeah. So just to give everybody, if nobody saw it already, this is what he referred to as the one-stop library. This is quite literally where all of our music is housed in terms of all of the people that we are currently having on the roster. These are the different albums that everybody can look at and listen to music for. Right now, we're coming up with a lot of different Christmas and holiday things because that's the time of year. So a lot of the music that we're pitching out is like going to Hallmark, all of these different Christmas movies, things like that. It's, it's the time of year now. So a lot of the times, a lot of these companies will come to our website just to look at these different things to see if it's anything that they fit into. So we have a very large amount of people on the roster.
Yeah.
So,
well, if you guys haven't had a chance to ask a question or you're not sure, you can always hit me on my DM. Everything from me is at Mogul Status, MOGUL Status. So feel free to hit me up, reach out. I'm saying just ask questions, but mostly.
All right. What do we say to people when they come in and talk to us?
Thank you.
Okay.
Anytime,